Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Shane Beamer, the South Carolina Gamecocks, looking to continue the success that they had on the football field in 2024 and kind of just continue that success on the recruiting trail over the next couple of weeks and months, really building this 2026 class out. I'll start with this. You look at the talent that was on campus for South Carolina this weekend, you can tell there's a lot of buzz, there's a lot of momentum with South Carolina on the recruiting trail. And, quite frankly, rightfully so. You look at this South Carolina program from kind of a bird's eye view standpoint, there are a lot of things that are moving in the right direction. But I think more importantly, there are a lot of things that should be pushing these high schoolers and this high school talent to a program like South Carolina. Now, you start with the continuity and clear future of this program. It is clear the culture. It is clear the player development, and it is clear that your head coach Shane Beamer getting extended through 2030. It's all going to be there for when you get to South Carolina. Now that's a kind of interesting point to pick on because there are a lot of other programs that can't offer that clarity of the future. South Carolina can. But I think secondly, and really what I think South Carolina needs to use on the recruiting trail is young players having the opportunity to play early and compete for SEC championships. I mean, you look at the South Carolina team at the month of November, really the end of the 2024 year, not only did South Carolina look like one of the more dangerous teams in the country, I was banging the table for them to get into the college football playoffs. Who were they doing it with? I mean, they were doing it with the redshirt freshman at quarterback, Lenore Sellers. You were doing it with a guy like Nick Harbor in his second year, a guy like Mazio Bennett as a true freshman. You were doing it with a true freshman left tackle in Josiah Thompson. You were doing it with the true freshman edge rusher in Dylan Stewart. I mean, you look at the South Carolina team, not only are they winning football games, but a lot of their young talent, they're getting opportunities to play a role in that early. That's not a lot of programs can offer that. I think South Carolina has shown that in 2024. If you're a kid in the 2025 or 2026 class looking at this South Carolina program, what you're probably saying is, look, Dylan Stewart is only a year older than me, and he's emerged as one of the best edge rushers in the country. This can be me if I come to South Carolina. I'm not going to have to wait 4 years to get on the football field. I think that is something that is pulling a lot of these kids and kind of a driving factor in terms of where they want to go play their college football. South Carolina has the opportunity to offer that, along with just this program. Like, look, y'all know I'm 5'10", $160. I ain't playing no college football. But if I were an elite prospect, I'd be looking at Shane Beamer in South Carolina and say that's a hard program to say no to in terms of the environment you play on every Saturday, in terms of playing in the SEC, the fan engagement that you have around this program. A lot of driving forces, a lot of wind at South Carolina's back going into the offseason, going into the recruiting trail. And it looks like they're fully prepared to capitalize on this momentum. Want to get into, a few of the young talent in this 2026 class that I think we need to focus on for South Carolina. We're obviously going to expand the board as the months and weeks go on. Before we get into it, as always, to the South Carolina fans, it's been a blast talking this football team on the recruiting trail, in the transfer portal, closing out 2024. The amount of support the South Carolina fans have shown the boys, it's been amazing. Can't thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Let's get into, some of these top targets emerging for South Carolina. Now let's start in the Carolinas, where South Carolina wants to do most of their work. Start with Rodney Dunham. Rodney Dunham is a fascinating prospect, one, because a two-sport athlete pumps 90 miles per hour up there on the mound on the baseball diamond. You turn on the film of him rushing off the edge. What you love is the blend between that first step and that burst, that ability to win on the outside shoulder of offensive tackles. Look, there's just not a lot of offensive tackles that have the athleticism to match the length and explosiveness that Rodney Dunham has. And then you look at the length and power in his hands and say, all right, if you are athletic enough to deal with me off the edge, can you hold up to the power I have in my hands? Because if you can, I'm going to go right through you. It's a very, and I'm not making the comp to Dylan Stewart, but it's a very similar situation in terms of what makes Dylan Stewart so special. Is there's just not a lot of tackles that can deal with his explosiveness off the edge. And if you can, and if you're going to cheat to that outside shoulder and you overset, like, I can go right through you too with the power in my hands. Rodney Dunham, you see a lot of those traits as well. Really gifted from an athleticism standpoint. You see him have multiple interceptions, just kind of playing the football at the line of scrimmage. Really coordinated as well. Go bet on this kid. And again, right in the backyard of South Carolina, these are the type of commitments that can take South Carolina, at least in my opinion, to the next level. You look at South Carolina on defense and what made them so elite. They had dudes on the defensive line that offensive lines couldn't really match. Now, another really interesting name, again, from the state of North Carolina. These two, if you can land one of them, you feel good. If you can land both of them, you feel really damn good. Aiden Harris, kind of an interesting where he ends up playing in college. 6'3", 240. Clearly has a frame that can get up to around 290 pounds. And quite frankly, kind of does remind you a little bit of TJ Sanders, where he's not going to be that massive zero that just overwhelms you with his size. But the size speed combination, when he does line up, and he kind of lines up all over the place. I mean, you'll see him head up on the center. You'll see him at the 3 tech. You'll see him out there on the 5 as well. Lines up all over the place when he's on the inside of the defensive line, which is probably where I think he plays at the next level, because I think he has the frame to get up to 290, 300. The athleticism is just, it's unparalleled. And you look at TJ Sanders and the problems he gave so many interior offensive linemen, it was because of all that athleticism and juice. Aiden Harris, very similar kind of cat. Now, again, I think you probably check back in on this kid going into his senior year and see what the body looks like, because he very well could play on the edge too and be a heavy-handed, really powerful edge rusher, but also be kind of a freaky dude on the inside. And maybe he plays first and second downs out on the edge, and then on those third down pass rush sets, you move him on the inside. Bet on this kid because the size-speed combination is very, very intriguing. Another name that I do like is Carson Baker from Langston Hughes. Was on campus for South Carolina. Look, if I were to sell the South Carolina fans and Carson Baker, talking about 6'5" or 6'1", 6.5, 6 feet 1, 6 feet flat. Sorry, that came out like he's 6'5". He's not 6'5". 6 foot, buck 95, almost 200 pounds. Thick lower half. Sub 11 seconds in the 100-meter dash. Again, big running back with a nice frame that has a ton of juice in terms of long speed. Now, if there's one thing that maybe I'd be nitpicky with Carson Baker, is it seems a little linear right now. I don't think there's a ton of juice in the short areas in terms of making people miss. That is something that maybe he could add to his game, but I like what he can do. If you're a safety or linebacker and you take a bad angle on him, he's going to run right by you. And so Carson Baker, we can bet on a 6 foot, 200-pound back that runs sub 11 in the 100-meter dash. We'll bet on that all day. And if you can add a little bit of that quick twitch, that ability to make people miss in a phone booth, you're looking at a really special running back. And you're already looking at a good running back that just ran for over 1,200 yards down there in the state of Georgia. And like, this kid is good. We're just kind of nitpicking and talking about where he can maybe take that next step. Last one I want to talk about, maybe outside of the defensive linemen who I think are special, Kavon Anderson, South Carolina kid, number 2 ranked player in the state. Again, South Carolina recruiting the state. That is a storyline we've talked about for years now. This kid's fascinating. You look at all the different spots he plays at the high school ranks. You'll see him rush the passer off the edge. You'll see him play a little off-ball linebacker. You'll see him play a little nickel. You'll see him play that center field free safety role. Really can do it all. And this is where the sport of college football is going, with the amount of speed and athleticism that offenses have. Can you have guys like Kavon Anderson who can match up with just about anybody from a speed standpoint, but also can come into the box and stop the run and give you that versatility in terms of where you can put them? This is big. And especially with South Carolina, we want to be creative with our safeties. We want to do different things and give different looks. Kavon Anderson is one of those guys. And that's another one of those positions where, one, player development I think has been really good. And number 2, if you can play, you're going to play early for South Carolina in the back end. It's nice to see. And as a Michigan fan, this never really felt this way for Michigan, where under Jim Harbaugh, Michigan won a lot. 3 straight Big Ten championships, came off a national championship, and it never seemed like Michigan took that next step on the recruiting trail. That's what I'm looking for South Carolina, where it's very clear that South Carolina was a great football team in 2024. We obviously have a ton of confidence in terms of what they're going to be in 2025. You're going to be a good football team. Can you sustain that success as, hey, we're going to play really good on the football field? Can we back it up on the recruiting trail? That's how these teams take that next step, and that's what we're looking for South Carolina to do. A lot of buzz, a lot of energy around this program. We'll obviously break down the commitments as they come in over the next couple of weeks and months. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.